Welcome to Inside View. I'm your host, Joel Metzger, and joining me today is Marti Crane, who is a candidate for District 5 Supervisor of Calaveras County. Welcome, Marti.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, Joel.
Well, it's nice of you to drop by and chat with us. I owe you my congratulations on making it to the runoff in the supervisor race. Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was definitely a hard-fought race with 4 people vying for the position.
That's true.
And you and Mr. Steve Kearney have gotten the 2 topmost number of votes, and you'll be facing off this fall to see who wins. So I imagine you're still in full swing of campaign, or are you taking a little break between the rounds?
Well, not really a break. No, it's part of my life. Community. I'm all over it. So community doesn't stop. As a matter of fact, on election day, a few people said, take the day off, put your feet up, take a break. And I tried to do that, but community was happening all around me, and I just couldn't, so I had to leave the house and had a blast.
Did I hear that you were on the side of the road with a sign on election day?
I was.
All right.
In the morning and then in the evening. But I do that every election. The night before, I have this white sign that just has big red letters, vote. And I go out there every night, or the last night before every election, and then the next day I work the polls.
Okay.
This is the first year in years that I didn't get to work the polls.
Is there some sort of rule against?
Yeah, it doesn't look good. And the charming husband, Bill, he didn't get to work the polls either because they figured that it probably was just a little better than you're not.
I see, yeah.
So he got the day off too.
All right, well, there you go. So let's go back to the beginning for those who haven't been introduced to you. Are you a native, or did you come to Calaveras?
No, I started in Ohio, and then after high school, I came to Long Beach. My father sent us out one at a time to Long Beach to live with our grandparents. So I spent quite a few years there, and that's where I met Bill. And I retired from 20 years in escrow in Orange County, and where we started an escrow company, an independent escrow company, and incorporated and built that from 2 to 13 employees. Then Dolores lost her husband, lost her health, and then she passed, and then we retired up here. So
you had a long career with a business down there. That's awesome. Did you like that? Was that something that you loved?
I loved it. I learned to be organized to the teeth, you know. There's a joke around our house. If you stand around long enough, like more than 10 minutes, I'm going to organize you. You know, so I mean, you have to be. If you want to keep a lot of balls in the air, you got to be organized and be able to see how they all fit together. So then when we came here...
When was that you came?
In 91 or 92. When we came here, I kind of hit the ground running, and I started with others, I started the student garden program through the Master Gardener program, and volunteered in gardening with the school for a number of years. And then I worked with others, and we started the youth center in Valley Springs, which I'm still very much involved with, served on the Prevent Child Abuse Council and the Women's Crisis Center for many years. Then in 2002, friends encouraged us to join the board at the Volunteer Center. So we did that, and then I very shortly thereafter took over the executive director position, and I'm still doing that. So in search of resources for our senior and fragile populations, I went out looking for these things, and one meeting led to another, to a workshop here and a workshop there, and it was all so interesting, and topics across the board like in-home supportive services, a training class over here on Social Security, regional transportation, mental health, you name it, it's out there. In-home supportive services. I have to look on my calendar to see where exciting I get to go that day, because it's hard to keep that big list. It's 20 to 30 sometimes meetings and workshops a month. And it's informed my understanding of how everything comes together in the county.
When you were in Orange County, did you have anything close to the level of community involvement that you have developed here?
No. Just like everyone else that works, well, I had hoped that it'd be an 8 to 5, but it was most of the time, it was like a 12 to 14-hour day. I worked a lot of hours as an escrow officer in Orange County, and it was a very hectic place. And it was what they now call a sick building because the windows didn't open. And so when we retired to Calaveras, it was like, I can't have enough doors to get outside. And so I love the fact that I get to go everywhere. And the Volunteer Center gives me permission to do that. So I've been all over this county. I don't know that there's one community that if I needed something or found myself stuck or broken down or something, that I couldn't call on someone in that community. And it's happened, and you're on the side of the road and people stop. And I'm sure, I stop for others as well. That's part of why I like living here.
How did you find Calaveras County?
We had a lot of, charming husband, Bill, he had a lot of family in Lodi. And so we traveled around and decided that when we looked at the atlas, the book, every time I mentioned something like back in the East Coast or something, he'd go, no. And then I'd said, well, how about Arizona? I have a sister that lives there. And what about, and then finally he said, yeah. And I said, oh, I get it. So anything on this side of the crack in the map is up for consideration. So we traveled around and we came up here because he had family here. First we bought some land in Oregon over the Rogue River. And before we built there, which was our plan, we sold it and moved here. And it's a great decision. We love it.
What motivates you to be as involved as you are for such a long period of time? I mean, that's not something that I see in many people. And as the former editor of the Enterprise, I mean, I was at a lot of the meetings myself.
Saw you there.
So what is behind this motivation?
Well, when I was growing up, I always heard, I was a 1,000-question kind of kid, high maintenance kid, because I ask a lot of questions. And I always felt like there was something I needed to know. And so now, being the director of the Volunteer Center and having so many of our fragile population, so much of that reliant on what could happen in the community, and having this supportive community, I feel like I have to help build this community. And when we moved to Calaveras, we promised ourselves that we would never take it for granted, that we would always do what we could to create that sense of community where everybody feels validated and safe and part of the process. And so then when I took over the Volunteer Center and I started seeing all this great work going on out there, there's amazing stuff going on in Calaveras County, and I don't ever want to miss it. So I'm afraid if I don't show up here or there, I might miss out on learning something today that will help tomorrow. And it's exciting for me. I'm one of those people that even though I lived in Long Beach, the beach did nothing for me. I was bored. I have to be learning something and engaged, and it's got community on it. I'm all over it. I don't know how else to say it.
Tell me what your hobbies are outside of running the campaign now, which isn't really a hobby, and attending community events. What else do you like to do? Well,
we joke at home about a community event. If the charming husband goes with me, it's a date, So there's that. I love to sew, but I haven't had a whole lot of time, which is why when I saw the curtains in the Enterprise, and I went, Stephen, when are we going to get new curtains here? Because the left window has white, the right window has these really sad, faded, beyond faded green ones. He gave me one of the panels, and I had some fabric at home, and I've cut them, and it's all ready to be sewn. It's sitting right there. But anyway, I love to sew. And I learned to sew in 4-H when I was a kid and back in Ohio, and that has served me so well, because in theater, community theater, we've done a lot of that. I always seem to end up doing costumes, and it's very exciting.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Why haven't you thrown your hat in the ring to politics sooner?
Because I really think that if your focus is on, if you work at the fire department, all right, your focus is on fire. If you work for the schools, your focus is on education. You work at the water board, your focus is on water. If you're a supervisor, you've got to have this big umbrella, and you've got to know where all the things fit in. Not necessarily, you can't be an expert on all that, but you've got to know who the players are and how it all fits together, and who to go to, and who to pull in together when there's a conversation to be had, which, by the way, we don't have enough conversations. I'm always working on that. So I didn't do it early on because I felt like I wasn't ready. And at some point, the stars align and you feel like, everything that happens in your life brings you to where you are. And I think that brings you to where you're supposed to be. And once I felt like people in this wonderful community have shared so much with me, they're my mentors. It's like the College of Calaveras. You show up and they teach you things. And once you realize that you've got this broad view and you have the skill sets to bring people together, you have a duty to step up. And so it's time.
So did you ever have that moment where you were kind of toying with the idea, but you weren't quite sure? And if so, what pushed you over the edge?
For a long time. And then about 3 years ago, it just felt like my district and the county as a whole wasn't being well served, in my opinion. Unless you show up at all these different places where this wonderful work is being done on behalf of things that impact all our families, such as mental health, addiction, transportation, all these different things. If you are part of the conversation, or at least witness to it, then you can develop an understanding of how those things, these different things, impact our families, such as Alzheimer's and addiction, like I said, and just getting old. That's a challenge. And if you are there and you can develop this deep understanding of how these things impact the families and the resources that may or may not be available to them, and then what happens when they fall through the cracks? How does that impact the family, then the community, and ultimately the budget? If you don't have that deep understanding, in my opinion, it would be very challenging, if not impossible, for you to represent those populations. But I think as supervisor, you still speak for them. And inadvertently, you may make decisions that, had you had a better understanding of it, you might have been able to help.
So Marti,
Yes.
if you are elected,
Yes.
you would join a board that is facing one of the most difficult budget situations. Certainly in my memory, I've never seen anything like this.
Right.
$8 million and change deficit. That's not necessarily something many people would want to get involved with, because that's going to be very difficult. What have you seen in terms of how the county is handling it, and what might you do? And I know you're only one of 5 votes if you're elected supervisor. How do you see the budget situation?
Well, first, I think I should say that I have attended every single 5-day preliminary budget hearing. By the way, they used to be 10 days. Every 5-day preliminary budget hearing since 2002. So I have watched how all these different boards, and they change, every time we have an election, it changes. So I've watched how all these different boards have handled the budget. Some things have been consistent. You learn some things that you just don't do. You see how they listen to the expertise that's on the budget, on the board, those who've had experience with the budget. Hopefully your fellow board members help you stay out of the potholes. It was a little more challenging this last time because we have 3 brand new supervisors. And I've been paying attention for a long time. Most times, I think when you look at any any election, you wonder, so what have you done to prepare for this election? Well, I know what I've done, and we can't afford to learn on the job. And so I have done everything I can to inform myself. And I can tell you that, in my opinion, we did not need to be $8 million in the hole, but we're there. And I also, through all of the different boards and groups and commissions and meetings that I attend, it is absolutely imperative that all of the boards that do the work of the people, including the Board of Supervisors, but all of these different boards, we must have productive and focused functional boards. And as a supervisor, I think part of your job should be to, when you go and represent, or when you are there in one of these meetings, you should have the skill sets to help people come together and work within a board. People are passionate about a certain subject or another subject, and so they join this work, this body of people who are working on behalf of this one segment of the population or this one issue. That doesn't mean that they have that they've developed the skills to work as a board. Personalities come into it. So I think as a supervisor, you should be ready to step in and maybe lend your support and guidance, if that's appropriate, to help them develop as a board.
But back to the budget.
Oh, I'm sorry, I strayed.
Where do you see the board going to get out of this very bad situation?
Okay, so we have a CAO and a staff who are very, very experienced, and they have developed a plan to 3 to 5 years to get us to a place of financial solvency. We have to stay laser focused on that plan. When we spend money that is not in this budget, in this plan, we have to take it from somewhere else. We can no longer just take it out of our contingency, because the contingency is very small. There are tough decisions, and you're not there to make friends, and you're not there just to make the easy choices and maybe not, abstain or whatever on other things. Or you have to be prepared when you come to the meeting, and you've got to know that in the long run, these tough choices are going to keep the mothership afloat.
Do you support spending one-time funds to
No.
get out of budget problems?
Well, as a rule, we have never done that. Now we have to. It's part of the plan to get to this place of solvency. And so now, yes, we have to do this. But there's a plan at the other end of it, as long as we stay focused.
So you support the staff recommendation of this 3 to 5 year plan to get out of the budget situation?
I do, because they're the experts.
If property taxes come back, that would certainly help. But if that doesn't, then there'll be some serious cuts that the board's going to have to make, and that's not going to be easy.
Painful, frightening, but still, what's more frightening to me is not doing it.
Are you willing to cut staff if there isn't another way, except going into debt?
That would be under the advice. We would have to take the advice of the department heads and we'd have to take guidance from our department heads, but also the experts, the CAO and our financial experts that are our staff. And they would be the ones to make the decisions. I mean, at some point, you have to do the tough decisions. We must be strategic about it so that we cause as little damage as possible. Because if we don't, then we're looking at bankruptcy, and nobody wants to do that.
Let's jump over to general plan real quick.
Yes.
It's been a long, long time
Yes.
in the making. What's your position on what you might do to further that end if you were elected?
Well, one of the 20 to 30 things that I do every month is I work with the Calaveras Planning Coalition. They've been working with the county closely because the county doesn't have enough money for everything. So public-private partnerships, this is a loose partnership, but they have been working through CAP, the Community Action Project, to help the planning directors over the years to further this process. And I think it is critical, in my opinion, that we make sure that when we are finished with this updated general plan, that we that we make sure that it is a good plan, that it has a good roadmap for it, provides us a good roadmap, so that every project that comes isn't some brand new thing that we have to start from scratch with. And a general plan, by definition, must have the voice of the communities. And our community plans are those voices. And thousands of hours and heart and soul and money from all the communities all over the county have gone into developing these community plans. So that voice is there, ready to be absorbed into the general plan. And so it is, in my opinion, essential that we have those in there. And that includes the Rancho Special Plan.
Brent Harrington recommended that community plans not be included in the general plan. And he said that because he wanted to get this thing done, and then you could add those later. Now, based on what you just said, is your position to perhaps have a longer process of implementation in order to include those?
I think it's far better to have a good plan, one that serves us well as a good document, than one that will come back and cause us grief later. And if you tried to add all these special plans and community plans in later, they would have to each be subject to their own studies. That's big dollars. Those community plans we're not going to have the money for that. Those voices have to be included in the general plan, in my opinion. And for instance, if a developer is going to come and look for a place for their project, they need that plan, and they need to know that the community supports it. If the community doesn't see their voices that they've spent all these years fixing, if they don't see themselves in this general plan, they're not going to be supportive of it, in my opinion. And when people look for a place to retire, build a business, or expand their business, they're going to be looking for a quality of life that doesn't just include, do we have good schools, how's our infrastructure, how safe do you feel? It also, I believe, means, do we have a plan going forward? Is there something where they can go, and find a roadmap?
If you were to characterize yourself in one of four ways, would it be no growth, little growth, lots of growth, or unfettered growth, looking toward the future of this county?
None of those.
How would you characterize yourself?
I would say those are labels. Just so everybody knows, I don't do labels because they tend to put you in a box, and that stops the conversation. So I would think that we need to grow out of this economic slump that we're in naturally, but also with an eye on creating here, because we can do so much. Another one of the work groups I work with, I was there today, is the Economic Development Company, working on broadband. Broadband data and everything is driving our future. And working on the higher education for our county. These are things that part of the things that define quality of life, and this is what brings people here. And when they look for this, I think we need to change the narrative of how we talk about this beautiful place, this fabulous place, because I think they're also looking to see, is this a community that supports one another? And if so, then we have created something that's going to invite people to come and business to come. And I also think that we need to acknowledge that we are Calaveras, and that is something unique and special. We are different from everything around us, and unique, and we should expand on that and embrace it.
If I had time, I would circle back on my question again and get you to commit to something.
What's that?
But how you would characterize yourself in terms of growth. But since we
well, it's whatever the community appreciates, and we can absolutely throw out the welcome mat. We don't have a lot of incentives to give because we don't have a big store at the moment to give. But we can certainly put out the welcome mat And I think Calaveras has already done that, and there's good people working all over the place on wonderful things to make this happen.
In the minutes that we have left, I wanted you to do a lightning round on some of the biggest issues in Rancho so people know what you're concerned about down there.
Oh.
And not just Rancho, your district, District 5.
Well, I think the issues are the same everywhere. It's the economy, jobs, our infrastructure. In Rancho especially, it's hard to get around, because you have to have a car. I would love for us to be able to, when we develop different areas, that we not put barriers like cement barriers in between things, so that Aunt Lily can leave her house on her scooter and go to town and go to the drugstore on her own, go to the grocery store. Maybe someday we'll have a movie theater. She could go to the movies, so that we can actually get around without automobiles. I mean, not everybody can drive. So there's that.
What would your top 3 priorities be? And we don't have time for you to expand too much, but if elected.
Well, first I want us to change the narrative about how we talk about this place. That means we have to come together and talk and learn to appreciate each other. And I really have to say that in my travels recently, I've noticed a lot of voter apathy, but able to overcome it with almost every conversation. Very few was I not able to. But I think it's because people want more from their elected officials. And when they cast that vote and then they don't get what they were hoping for, of course, we can't just cast the vote and then walk away. We have to stay engaged. But when they see that they're not getting what they anticipated, they tend to fall away. That is voter apathy. And we hear that as a statement all the time. I couldn't let it go. And so I had to think about it, and I thought, we're already working on youth volunteer opportunities through the Volunteer Center, working with Zero McDaniel and now the school district, the Calaveras Unified, with civic engagement. We want to take it from K through 12 so that our children learn as they grow, they mature in their idea of civic engagement. When they get to high school and they start thinking about, what do I want to do? They think about, oh, well, if I want to be a surgeon, there's a roadmap to get there. If I want to be a lawyer, there's a roadmap. A mechanic, there's a roadmap. But when they want to be a civic or a public servant, like the Board of Supervisors, they're told to fill out their papers, file their fees, and get enough people to vote for them, and they're in. We need to have a roadmap to show them how to be effective once they get there.
Okay, we are out of time, Marti.
Already?
I appreciate you joining me on this show, as always. And I appreciate you joining me as well on this edition of Inside View. I'm your host, Metzger, and I hope you join me next time.